So before we get into this episode, I have a couple of shout outs to do. One of my loyal podcast followers or subscribers or whatever you would call them, somebody who is a great person that likes to listen to me talk, they reached out to me and gave me some Eskimo tickets, which is pretty cool. And it was just she also follows me on Instagram, and she was like, I was watching your story and I figured maybe you'd appreciate these, and I do. So I wanted to give Edith a shout out because she made my day yesterday, and I would get excited about a podcast shout out, so I hope she does too. My next shout out goes to my friend Dustin. And a lot of people who know me well, might realize that he has been my primary photographer for a lot of my marketing, for just my personal training business, for a lot of my Instagram posts, stuff like that. He's been someone who's supported me from when I started in the industry on like a very personal level. Just he's seen my bad days. He's seen me go from like a size 34 pants to a size 32 pants. He's seen how passionate I've been about the different things like spin classes. He's seen me completely biff it on an Olympic lift. He's been there. And I want to give him a shout out. If you are looking for photography for a wedding, for if you want a portrait, if you're looking for something professional to help you stand out with what you do, if you're looking for something to celebrate a special moment, couple pictures, if you're just an influencer and you're at a point where you need to hire somebody, my friend Dustin is extremely talented. The best way to reach him is at mocha22_ on Instagram. You can also just DM me or send me an email and I'll connect you. Because honestly, he does a lot of work for the fitness industry. He's done a few weddings. He does a lot of portraiture. He goes to a lot of the urban YEG meetups. So he's always honing his craft. So yeah, I pumped his tires. I did it good, and he deserves it. So let's get this started. We're gonna dive right into episode 76. Welcome to the Lifestyle Chase, Season 2. This podcast features high performers who have found a way to live their best life while balancing their health, wellness, friends, and family. I'm your host, Chris Little. Let's get started. The Lifestyle Chase is brought to you by YEG Fitness. YEG Fitness is Edmonton, Alberta, Canada's healthy lifestyle community, creating and supporting active living for all. Check them out online at yegfitness.ca and on social media at YEG Fitness. So, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome to episode 76 of The Lifestyle Chase. Today I am joined by the one and only Tara Gaucher. Did I say that right?
Nailed it.
Yes. Okay. So, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I feel like I've got a bit of a forearm pump on, which is always a great way to start the morning. And I regret not doing some foam rolling after leaving CrossFit, but beyond that, I'm feeling good.
What was the workout of the day today?
Right, first rule of CrossFit is always talk about CrossFit. So the workout of the day today was we had 5 different stations. We were doing 2 minutes of work, and we were moving through some rowing for calories, ski erg, airdyne, some burpees, and some skipping, and did some dips and some strict pull-ups before that. So it was a humbling assessment of mastering moving my body through space, we'll say. Just a lot of gravity this morning on the dips. Excessive gravity, it felt like.
So I'm curious because you're the one who connected me with Carl Paoli, but I want to know how you cross paths with Carl Paoli.
How did this work? So Carl was an incredible resource to me when I first got connected with the CrossFit community in about 2010. I did my level 1, I was coaching, and I was looking for more training resources, and I wanted to learn as much as I could. And he was the guy making the video tutorials and the gymnastics tutorials I felt like before anybody else. So I had watched like literally every single piece of content made between 2010 and 2014. Then he published a book, which was a great resource to me. So I purchased that, and then he started hosting some seminars in different locations. One of them was in Calgary, so the most accessible to me from here in Banff. And I wrote to him and said, "Hey, I'll be there." And yeah, got to meet him in person. And I guess prior to that had been interacting on Twitter for 3 years beforehand, or direct messages on Instagram. So I met him at his seminar in Calgary. And then I had a work trip to San Francisco with my previous job. Said, "Hey, Carl, I'm in San Francisco." And he was like, "Sweet, we should grab a coffee." I'm like, amazing, because you're a real human. And of course you go for coffee with people. Great. Yeah, let's do it. And yeah, I've been fortunate to call him a mentor and a resource and a friend since then.
That's so cool, and it ties in well with the newly rolled out Coffee with Carl.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Like I like how he's done branding for it and everything, like figured out a logo and just gone all out to get people together for coffee.
Totally. And the amazing things that can come from a simple conversation. So I had a follow-up call with him as he was recruiting and hoping to connect with a few more people to join his workshop that was just hosted in San Francisco. And I was like, I have a guy, you. So that's why I reached out to you. And yeah, it's for myself. I feel really fortunate that many opportunities in my life have come from a friend of a friend of a friend in an email or a text message. And yeah, it's something that I really enjoy as well, is connecting people, throwing it out there. You never know what will stick. And I don't know how people actually get anything else done in the world. Like, I'm not really working. I spend a lot of time in my apartment. So if I didn't connect with people on the internet, I don't really walk down the street that often. So
Yeah, no, I
yeah, it's just
totally understand that. And it's cool because one person can like always connect you with more people, and so there's no like belittling the value of meeting anyone because
mhm.
they know other people. They have connections or exposure to people that we would never have, whether it be like a small fish, big fish, red fish, blue fish.
Yeah, yeah,
So I'm curious,
absolutely.
what was your very first CrossFit class like? Like when you took it?
Oh, yeah. I went with my mom. She had a private one-on-one session scheduled because we had a family friend that got super fit super fast. And we are like, "What did you, who are you and what happened?" She said she signed up for superhero training, is what she joked about. So my mom did the research, found a gym close to our house. At that point in time, I had just moved back from Toronto. So I danced my whole life. I was a professional dancer in Edmonton. I danced with a really wonderful company called the Ukrainian Shumka Dancers. I toured extensively with them. Um, yeah, then moved to Toronto, did a professional training program, was still dancing, and then ultimately ended up with one of those like career-ending injuries. So came back to Edmonton a little bit like broke, injured, and with my tail between my legs. And yeah, my mom was like, "Come to this CrossFit thing. I think you would like it." And at first, I super resistant. I'm like, "Sure, mom, if you like it, then I'm out of principle. Not. I don't. I'm not interested in whatever you have to say." And I went, and the first workout, I think we did like Tabata style shuttle runs and push-ups. And like clearly vomited. And he was also, I think, a workout that was structured so that the coach could be like, "See, you're not as fit as you think you are." And I was like, "No, 100% not." And I think within those first 2 or 3 classes, I was like, I could see myself here. And then, fast forward 6 months, and the gym that I was a member at was hosting some of the level 1 certifications. So I was gifted a training. I was a scholarship opportunity. And then, yeah, it's like 9 years later, still nerdy and talking about CrossFit.
That's awesome. So, with your experience living in Toronto, what were 3 things that you learned there?
Oh, I will never live in a basement apartment again. It was a dark time in like a literal and figurative sense living underground. So just to not to take advantage, or not to take for granted the impact that our surroundings and the way that we set up our space can have on us. Um, money isn't a lot of money isn't everything. A certain amount of money is helpful to be able to survive. Like that was a time in my life where I think I'm still working through some of those experiences. Like I was broke. So being broke is a joke, I think, is important for everyone to do once in their life to really understand, do you need that coffee? Do you need that new pair of workout shoes? You don't really need a lot of things, but you do need a certain amount of money to be able to like pay your rent all in one shot. Because I reached the point where I was like, hey, landlord, can I give you half my money now and half of it in 14 days? Awesome. Um, and we can accomplish, you can accomplish really whatever you set your mind to. I had, yeah, worked hard for the opportunity to attend the school that I did, but made it work. So through scholarships, through grant applications, through horrendous summer jobs, was really proud of myself that I manifested that experience, we'll say. And I think had it come about under other circumstances, it might not have been as valuable to me. So I think I'm proud of myself for going for it, for sticking it through, and for ultimately paying for it. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like it. So, my next question for you is, what are three other things in your life that you have gone for despite the difficulties, despite how much like discomfort that it would have been?
Oh, I have a kind of a bad habit of saying yes to things without really maybe thinking it through. You're like, just because it's possible, therefore, yes. So I've tried stand-up comedy, but with zero preparation whatsoever. Like talked a lot about how I was going to do it and then just prepared no material and walked on stage and grabbed a microphone. And the first two times, highly successful. Well, I would say like moderately successful. People laughed. It was all right. And then the third time was just an epic disaster. Um, what else? I guess that's, yeah, the first that jumps to mind. I need two more.
Yep.
Mm, put me on the spot. Um, I traveled to the CrossFit Games this year with the intention of making a short film. I learned in the process that like I had the wrong attachment for my camera and I didn't have the right battery for my microphone and I screwed up an SD card and I filmed like 6 interviews in 120 frames per second, which is arguably slow motion with no sound. But I went for it, so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna make this. So now I'm still 6 months later working through the aftermath of like 6 hours of video content that I don't really know what I'm gonna do with. But I think there's power in, for me, I think I'll never actually feel ready. So I like say yes so I can jump on board and then figure it out as I go. Because everything is figure outable. Siri, between Siri and Google, it's all possible.
Absolutely. So, what's your third one?
Mm. I just quit my job. That was a big, I didn't really have anything else lined up afterwards, but felt like I needed to make a change in my life and had heard myself talk about how I needed to make this change. And then one day wrote the email and did the thing and was like, cool. Ah, go figure. I'm in so much more control of my life than I realized. Yeah.
So, what was the job that you quit?
I was working in public relations and crisis communications for a large hospitality organization. So it
Oh,
was pretty
okay.
full on.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty full on, but really an amazing learning opportunity to work with a large brand and a large team. And yeah, I learned again, I guess, how I didn't have any formal training for that job ever, but someone said, "Do you want to do this job?" And I was like, I'm pretty sure I articulated to you that I don't think I can, and I went to dance school. But if you think I can, then I guess I think I can. And sure, 4 years later, I had a corporate job and a business card and an expense account and all of those types of things that came with it.
And without doubt, like everything comes with its ebbs and flows. Like we're all gonna have all these different jobs, but we wouldn't be the same person if we hadn't done them. So it's
True.
valuable that you had that experience, even though it took you to a whole different page in your book, sort of thing.
Totally. Totally. Yeah.
So one thing that I noticed, I did a quick little like Google scan, and I found, I think it's like cottage life. You were doing some work for like
Oh
cottage life. What was that all about? Like, how did you get into that? And what were your
yeah.
favorite
Yeah.
things about doing that?
I Speaking of the power of like a friend of a friend's friend, so I'd gone to Mexico in like 2012 with two girlfriends and their friends. 8 months later, one of them sent me a message on Facebook saying, "Hey, I came across this contest. You should totally enter." And it was an opportunity to host a travel show. And I got the email from her, or the Facebook message, like the day before the deadline. At that point in time, I had just moved back from Toronto, had $0. My dad bought me. Oh, this is after I just came back from traveling. So a couple of times I've gone away, bankrupted myself, and come home and had a manual labor job. So this manual labor job, I was installing fiber optic telephone cable for a family business. So contracted and working with my cousins. Like literally, so cable, it comes on these big reels, and you're pulling cable, you literally just like pull it off the reel, thread it through some conduit underground, and then pull it out the other side. So like a very physically um, intense job, but I didn't mind it and it paid my bills, and sure, got to work with my family. Anyhow, I had one day to make an audition video to host a travel show, and I was like, literally, it was maybe, I don't know, -15 outside. I'm like halfway in a manhole. There's vehicles driving behind me. I have my pink hard hat on, and I was like, hey, this is not the life that I signed up for. Travel and escape. You should really pick me to host your show. And I think they probably just felt terrible for me that this, like, I clearly did not look fit for the job. And yeah, so I won this contest. Won a contest. We spent 2 weeks in Iceland filming the pilot, and then through that I ended up with a contract for a digital travel magazine, which now working more in public relations in the media industry, I realized like how fortunate and once in a bajillion opportunities are to end up with a proper publication. So hosted a show, became a travel writer because of an online contest, and then it all kind of fell to crap. But the company was really awesome, and they hired me back for another project the following summer, which was this cottage life gig. So we traveled from Nova Scotia to Canmore, and I had a brand new Ford Escape. We made 11 web episodes of me going on adventures and driving a new car with like trying to work on subtle product placement, we'll say.
I like it.
Yeah.
There was a few videos that I saw because I would like pick one, skim through, and it was very subtle product placement. It was just like, okay, vehicle, get warmer. And I was like, oh, nice, nicely done.
Yeah.
Because
Oh man, and
my car doesn't do that.
right. The real comedy is that I was driving a 1998 Buick during the midst of all of this. I didn't buy a new vehicle until last year, so I was driving my grandpa's car. That like, yeah, it just needs to be retired. It's parked in Edmonton on my parents' driveway. It just needs to go to. If you know of any charitable organization that takes vehicles for a tax receipt, let me know. That's where it needs to go.
Yeah. I think
Rest in peace,
there's
Buick.
like the Kidney Car Foundation or something like
Beauty.
that.
They probably need to pick it up, but yeah.
So what's it like driving an old vehicle like that? Like how does it build your character?
That is a great question. I think it says, I just need a car. And I'm not going to judge anybody, because when I showed up for my job interview, well, what turned into be a job interview at a very fancy hotel in Edmonton, they had organized valet parking for me, and I was mortally ashamed of my vehicle, and I had already parked it like 2 blocks down the road, and was like, oh, it's like probably a liability if I gave the valet person the keys to this car, because I think the window didn't work on that side. And yeah, it was a disaster. But I think, for all the people driving terrible cars out there, good on you, because a vehicle is just a means of getting from point A to point B. And frankly, they cost a lot of money. And if it works, it works. Like, we make life so complicated. We judge people so much. A car is a car, but for some people, a car is a story about worth and accomplishment and status and all those things. But for me, it was just wheels. I have to say, driving something that I actually feel safe in has been a big turning point, though. Like, remote start. I was like, whoa, what is this vehicle from the future that turns itself on command from a distance? Whoa. Heat, what are
It's
these heated seats?
it's so
Yeah.
true, and it's important for people to remember, like, hey, if you're chasing something more meaningful, like the vehicle, as long as it's running, as long as it's not gonna kill you, is kind of irrelevant. Like, yes, you're gonna have to do sneaky things like park around the corner, and yes, you're
Yeah.
gonna have to, like take public transit to some things because it's like a bougie event and you want to show up with a good impression or something.
Yeah.
Like, not that jumping off a bus is gonna give you a good impression, but at least you can like
That's
walk around the corner or something.
right. I feel like the bus says I care about my carbon footprint a little bit, but
But it's a tough cutthroat world where a lot of people aren't gonna perceive it that way. And I mean, like, yeah, it's like some people are going to be extremely impressed when they notice like the little things that people do, like not throwing their garbage out the window and stuff like that. Like people are still throwing their garbage out the window, and it's kind of crap.
it's
Like I hate it.
ridiculous. Yeah. I We're fortunate. I'm living in like a never neverland in a national park. So just did a little bit of travel recently back into real life and was like, oh yeah, cities can be horrendously dirty places. Why are people monsters? Why are we doing this? It doesn't have to be this way. But to make stuff illegal, people won't do it. It's illegal to litter in a park, in a
Yeah,
national park. So you just
yeah.
don't do it.
So what brought your life to Banff? Was it just a job? Was it like a vision quest? What was it?
Yeah, it was totally a job because all these TV hopes and dreams were like, it's going to happen. It's not. It's going to happen. It's not. So prior to coming to Banff, I had produced a dance show for the Edmonton Fringe. I'd been volunteering for Edmonton Tourism. I I booked a one-way ticket to California to live with a stand-up comedian who I met through the Fringe because I thought maybe I would just be a comedian. I mostly just walked her dogs and shoveled dog poop and was a minion, and I helped her move. Um, and then came back to Edmonton and again was like, cool, I'm either going back to California to live this dream or I'm going to host this other branded content series. And that all fell to crap. So I was shoveling snow. I was working at CrossFit in the evenings and I was shoveling snow from between like 4 a.m. or 4:30 a.m. until it just stopped snowing that day. So when this job opportunity at the Fairmont came up to like dress like an adult and sit at a desk, even though I didn't feel qualified for any of it, I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome, because I think Valentine's Day of 2014, I shoveled snow for like 13 hours outside in downtown Edmonton. So it started that morning, and then like it snowed enough we had to keep going back to the same spot. So people were like going out for their romantic dinners all dressed up downtown. And at that point in time, I was just in my long johns and my winter boots shoveling snow. And I was like, cool, I need to make better life choices. Like, I have no shame, but also like, what am I doing here? Yeah.
That is like a very pivotal moment. Like the timing of that and like the intensity of that is like, oh shit, time to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm curious, with all of the like you've been on like the public space, like just in videos and marketing and all these things. What has that taught you about yourself? I want you to list off like five qualities that you've been able to identify from being in front of people.
Um, I think it's the realization that if I'm thinking it, we're all thinking it. So I've found great power in, not to say being a commentator, but being able to break the ice based upon the little voice that's in the back of my head. So being able to hopefully be relatable. Um, I think my like on camera alter ego is the best version of myself, because I'm generally always excited to do stuff. So it's been an incredible opportunity to get to experience things in a place where people are living vicariously through me. Um, it's made me realize how grateful I am to be able to do that. I think there's this, when someone's not, everyone can call bullshit, right? And when you see something that's unfolding in front of you that's not authentic for whatever reason, something sticks out and you can tell that it's not the real deal. And I feel like I've been fortunate to be able to express myself pretty articulately in those moments, to have other people realize that I am the real deal and I am pumped to be here. And I did shovel snow and I did drive a shitty car. So it's not lost on me that this is incredible. I'm not going to take it for granted. And yeah, by default, having worked on the other side of things, like on the production side, to realize how many moving parts come together to make these things happen. So I have so much respect for the people that can produce content, from the capturing to the editing to the sound mixing, like all of those things that come together in the process of creation. They're technical skills that I'm working on and I'm aspiring to get better at. But to me, that learning curve is steep and it's overwhelming. And I often feel defeated because there's a lot of other people that they're better at it. Yeah, but then I've been in the fortunate position that I just get to show up and do the stuff. And if I could continue to do that and not have to get stressed out about the technical side of things, then man, then life would be a dream. But it's not always that easy. There's one person in front of the camera and 10 people behind the camera, and a lot of people that want that job. So I just feel fortunate that I've just been really lucky, like horseshoes at my butt lucky.
I like that. So I sometimes I reflect on just like how much like little moments can teach a person, but it's just like we're always going through our ups and downs, and we're always looking externally for so many things to help us with life. But so often it's just a matter of like aligning our core values with the things that we're doing. And it's just like matching it up as closely as we can. So I feel like you've had to like cross a lot of paths where it's like, oh, further away from the core values, oh, closer to the core values. With that being said, what would you say are like 4 or 5 of your core values?
Oof. And this is like Dear Diary homework, not, but I appreciate that we're having this conversation. What are my core values? I think that element of authenticity, to be authentic in a world that's trying to sell you things and make you want stuff to fit in, and that this fitting in idea has become so pervasive. You know, I'm really fortunate that Instagram wasn't a thing when I was in high school, because if it was, I'm not sure how my life would have unfolded. So I think the idea of integrity, something I'm working on. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And if I can't do something, whether those relate to myself or to my interactions with other people, for me, I think it really starts with building that integrity with myself. So the choices that I'm making, even from the basis of like sleep and eating nutritious things and having positive self-talk. And if I can cultivate those qualities with the way that I deal with myself, then hopefully I can cultivate those qualities in the relationships I have with other people. In the yoga teacher training, the idea that popped up, or that was a big blew my mind a little bit, the idea of non-harm, right? That we're ahimsa is what it's called, so that we are not to be causing pain to other people if we can prevent it. But the reality is also that within ourselves. So in the context of like movement, how many times that for me, I did things that hurt me, and I have injuries, and I continue to do things that hurt. And I was like, go figure. I am hurting myself, and I don't have to hurt myself. Oh, great, cool. Like I can let that go and have less pain in my life. That's 3. 4, gratitude. There was a podcast interview where Carl interviews a guy named, I think his name is like Johnny Rocket. He had worked in the music industry, was very overweight, decided he wanted to become a Nike athlete, and through the process of his self-evolution, became a Nike-sponsored athlete, ran a marathon, lost all this weight. And his quote, he's like, I wake up each day and I say, damn, I'm on a winning streak. And like, I want to wake up each day and be like, hot dang, I'm alive. I woke up. My eyes work. I'm still breathing. Like, if I could start my day with that much gratitude, if we all started with that much gratitude, what we do have versus what we don't have, because the more I swipe through my Instagram within 4 minutes of being awake, there's a lot of things I realize I don't have. And I don't have abs, and I don't have a new coat, and I don't have new this. But if I could stay truer to the abundance that is around, I think life would be awesome. More awesome, because it is awesome. I'm alive. That's pretty cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. And the last one, the core value. Need to be brave. Like every time things screw up inevitably, but rather take the risk and have it blow up than not take the risk and be resentful, because I think a quality that I let stew for a bit was this idea of watching other people from a distance and yeah, just being jealous of people living their lives and doing their thing, and what gives them permission to go and do that. We all have permission to go live our lives. Guess what? If you want to go on a trip, book the trip.
It's so true. Yeah.
If you want a car, buy the car. If you want the thing, do the thing. If you want to lose weight, figure out your shit. Like, it's actually not that hard. Clearly it's hard. Being a human is inevitably very challenging. But the flip side is, like, to do anything, it's a very privileged perspective. I get that. But within that, everything is figure outable.
Yep, I like that. I think that's the third time I've heard everything is figure outable. And it's such a common thing, because I think a lot of people beat themselves up, especially with social media, especially with all this comparison. And it's like, unless you can see it within yourself, why are you so concerned about what you're seeing in someone else? Like, it starts with us. And I think a lot of people go through times when they don't see very much in themselves. And so then they're going to look for what's so great about other people. And that's just a struggle that I think we all go through. Like, I'll have all kinds of guests that come on this podcast, and I'm sure all of them are really hard on themselves. And all of them went through this navigation of learning how to not be so hard on themselves, and learning how to see more in themselves. And that's the point where they started to excel, because they had a better self-awareness, and they realized, well, shit, I'm not perfect at this, but at least I'm giving it a shot. At least I'm chipping away at it. And that whole, like, starting off your day with that right attitude is huge. Like, I'm going to do big things, or I deserve nice things, or I live in abundance, something like that. So those are a few mantras. If you could have a mantra and it was the best thing that you could possibly come up with, it's not necessarily something that you're doing today, but your best case scenario mantra, what would it be?
Oh, I didn't make it up. But I had worked at Lululemon at one point in time, and one of the benefits of being an employee was some personal development opportunities. And so for anyone that's worked for Lululemon is familiar with Brian Tracy, I feel like they probably still have to listen to his motivational speaking. And one of the exercises was to look at yourself in the mirror and make eye contact with yourself and simply say, I like myself, and to repeat it and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. And as much as it sounds totally hokey, and I feel resistance in my body to that idea, like, I like myself, I feel like for me right now, that would be an incredible place to start, because if I don't like myself, I don't know how anyone else would or could. And yeah, we got to figure out our own, plant seeds in our own backyard, before anything else can change. So.
Yeah, we all have to figure out our own shit. Like,
there's
there's no doubt about it. Like, half the time when something's not going right, it's nobody else's fault. It's our fault, but it's swallowing that huge pill of, like, oh, wow, like, it all starts with me, and, like, my self-talk has just been horrendous, and so no wonder nobody is seeing my best qualities, because I'm not expressing them. So I think it's incredibly powerful to, like, outline the fact that, like, sometimes these little hokey pokey mantras that we start our day off with can be, like, those pivotal moments, because like, you and I right now, I'm pretty sure we're both just kind of making up our job day by day for the most part.
100%. Hundo.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, it's like, if we're not just completely crushing the self-talk, it's basically like firing ourselves that day, you know?
Yeah, yeah. No,
Like
you're totally right.
today I had it happen like I have a good average of clients per week, but it'll fluctuate in which day that they choose to train. Like my bills are paid, so that is great, but like I often have all of them choose to train on a Tuesday or all of them choose to train on a Wednesday. And so then I'm left with these empty days. And I often get people saying, "Oh, well, Chris, take the day off, you know, you deserve it. Just take that day off, just kick back." And I'm like, "No, like," and I mean, with that being said, I very much value the merit of blocking out like a full 8 hours for that reset, for that solitude, for some like self discovery, read some books, stuff like that. But at the same time, I need to be working on bettering myself. I can't just like stagnation is not good. That's when we start like we're drinking too much beer, we're eating too much pizza, we get sad. But when we're always working to better ourselves, then that's what sets us up to empower others around us, which I think
Hmm.
we're both wanting to do that. Many people are. It doesn't matter
Hmm.
if they're in business or if they sell vacuum cleaners or if they clean windows. They want to make that window clean, they want to make that business do well. Doesn't matter. But with that being said, I usually say I have an empty day. I like to communicate with people. So this is an empty day. You and I are communicating. I initially had a podcast recording before this one, but he had to drop out because his Wi-Fi wasn't good. But it's just like it doesn't matter how many people I talk to. There's no such thing as too much as long as it's genuine, because a genuine conversation fills a person's cup. A fake one,
Hmm.
if it was like if I had all these questions written out that without knowing what you were going to talk about, I was just going to ask the same questions no matter what, that would be draining because I would be trying to get something out of my own perception of you that
Hmm.
might not be who you are. Like that's what I like
Hmm.
about asking questions without having questions. Then I
Hmm.
learn
Hmm.
and I formulate my next question off of what you told me, and it teaches me to be a better listener. And so I guess that long ramble tangent that I went on is basically like find the value in each day. So like I started off with maybe not much going on. So how many people am I gonna come across in my day, and what can they bring to my life, and what kind of books are in my house that I could read, and what kind of continuing education could I go through? It's not so much as like sitting down and just thinking, oh, I wish I was more busy. It's like sitting down and being like, how can I, at my core, be better? Because when we're better, the things around us are better. That's when people like connect us
Hmm.
with movers and shakers, and that's when crazy, cool, lucky opportunities come up because people can see within us that we see something great and they see something great too because we saw it first.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, my next question for you, and it's just like random. With coaching CrossFit, what is the most joy you have ever felt in a coaching moment?
Hmm. I think there's two parts to it, and you can probably identify with it um, when you through or you me I the person who is coaching sort of unlocks some information that this person had been exposed to before, whether it was just a different turn of phrase or a different analogy or a different example, and they're like, aha, and you're like, yes, and that you can see that those connections have been made, and this athlete will be forever changed because they can now embody that information that maybe they had been hearing for a month or a year or 4 years, but that just needed to be delivered in a different method or experienced in a different way. And I feel like that makes me feel superhuman. I'm like, yes, I am a decoder of science, like that. That makes me feel like a very powerful communicator, and I take great pride in that. And also, I really enjoy those moments when you see someone achieve something that they didn't think that they could, and my primary job is to keep someone safe, to set them up for success. But when you or me as the person that like just encourages them a little bit more with the right information and the right push, and they are, when someone gets their first pull up and you're like, you are a superhuman, and they're excited and I'm excited, and those victories are awesome, because I feel like life is hard and we don't have as many opportunities to get that stoked about stuff. Like, yeah, I don't know, in my adult life, don't always feel like I'm nailing it at life. I generally feel like I'm screwing up all the time. So to get to celebrate those achievements, for me, is really special. I get very excited.
What's the last achievement in your life that you've really celebrated?
Oh, I'm a pretty disaster of a cook. I try really hard, but I'm a disaster. So the small victory was 2 days ago. It was like, I'm going in blind with some ingredients. We're gonna kill, I don't know, and add some maple syrup, and I made a delicious dinner, and I felt like a champion. What else have I unlocked lately? Oh, just getting my camera generally figured out has been a big achievement as well, because I am stubborn and did not read the manual. And I realized life could have been quite a bit simpler if I would have started at the beginning, which just seem to avoid that more often than not. So finally getting my tech shit figured out was very helpful. So to realize that when you have systems in place, productivity and efficiency can improve. And so my resistance to starting at the beginning was really the thing that was preventing me from excelling or compounding my growth. So like, go figure, get an office, put your computer on a table, don't work on the couch, like very basic things. Maybe you should shower in the morning and brush your teeth and then start your day, and you won't feel like a bag of garbage, because like working on the couch unshowered in the same pair of University of Alberta gray sweatpants 4 days in a row, I'm like, oh, I'm just lost some momentum here.
Yeah. But it's that's important for people to hear, because like you might feel like you're beating yourself up, but everybody could beat themselves up in the
Yeah.
exact same way. And so it's a healthy reminder that the more that you like really take care of yourself, like a great sentiment is taking care of yourself like you would someone you love. And it's you
Mm-hmm.
really have to dig deep for that one, because oftentimes people that are hard on themselves are also like very very compassionate towards others and very
Mm-hmm.
loyal. And we forget, like, okay, so I would take like this significant other or partner or whatever, I would take them out for dinner, or I would like take extra care into the meal that I made for them.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't feed them garbage, or I wouldn't say no, you shouldn't work out, no, you shouldn't look out for your best self, and I wouldn't tell them not to sleep at night. Like just all these different things that we can reflect on, and it's
Mm-hmm.
a really fast track way to exercise some very realistic self care, because
Mm-hmm.
it's just like that whole mirror thing. Like if we can't say what we need to say in the mirror, if we can't say I like myself in the mirror, well, why not? It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. 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 And that in the context of health and well-being and mental health, that for me, in my experience, it's a super slippery slope between like, we got this, to like, I am on the hot mess express. And to realize that those elements of like literally the basic things of taking being an adult, of like drinking water, sleeping, don't eat foods that tear up your guts, going to the gym in general, going outside for a walk, that those are the things that keep the wheel on the wagon, and that by investing time and energy in it, I'm not being self-indulgent, and I'm not being it's not gratuitous, it's like actually necessary for well-being. And that, for example, I had the really great fortune to be traveling for a few weeks prior to this, and like the idea of like treat yourself and have that beer and have that dessert, which I did for a couple of days, and I just felt like complete garbage, and the wheels fell off the wagon after that. So like to realize what is a treat for you. Like, is a treat actually a piece of cake? If it is, go for it. But maybe a better treat for yourself is actually a long walk, or is actually something that in someone else's world is a great thing, but knowing yourself in your world, what would be a better gift you could give yourself?
That's important. It's a good sentiment to reflect on because a lot of people, they all give an example. Like sometimes I'll think, oh, a treat for me. Like this is going to really make me feel better. I'm just going to get some Oreo cookies. So I go get my Oreo cookies. I'm like, yum, yum, yum. And I'm like, oh, you know, that was kind of cool. I got the sugar rush. That was awesome. And I really like Oreo cookies, but like they didn't really solve any world problems by me eating Oreo cookies. Like really what it is it's just like, okay, there's something I'm harboring that is just like eating me up inside. And I tried to like band-aid fix that with like a whole thing of Oreo cookies. But now I have to face this problem again and my stomach is rumbling and I feel kind of like a like an idiot because I ate so many cookies. It's just like we have to, for example, my thing is like my guests on this podcast fluctuate so much, but for good reason, because maybe I'm like, okay, I just want to know more about this thing, and so I'll pick a guest because they can probably teach me more about that thing. And then sometimes it's very obscure, like sometimes I'll pick like a yoga instructor, but I'll want to know more about cats, but I have a feeling that the yoga instructor is going to teach me more about cats. Or sometimes I'll
I've
pick.
got the. If you need a cat loving yoga person, I'll hook you up. I'll send you a
Sweet.
DM afterwards. Got someone
There's,
for you.
it's crazy how many people. Well, I guess it's eye opening. You know how sometimes a person is like, wow, I wish I got to meet, and I'm just going to use Brene Brown for an example, because that's somebody that a lot of people who know who it is. And Brene Brown has so much to offer, so many good like resources and books and all these things. And they're like, I wish I got to meet Brene Brown and just what I would do if I got to meet her. And I'm just going to hold out on everything else, on connecting with anybody else, because I want to save all that for Brene Brown, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so often we're missing the fact that like 2 blocks away from our house is somebody with quite a lot to offer themselves. Like somebody else that has a lot of a life experience, or somebody else that has years and years of like university education, or somebody else that had to go through something really tough. And when we have that like preconception of that we have to hold out until we meet the person with the expectations that we have, like if we
Mm-hmm.
build ourselves up to think that we can only find something on one path, we shut the
Mm-hmm.
doors on so many different opportunities and we basically stunt our self growth. But if we are
Mm-hmm.
open to the fact that like we could probably get to the same destination 200 different ways, then the odds of us getting there are that much higher, which is a cool discovery, something that helps me a lot. And hopefully some people have some light bulb moments where they're like, oh, okay, like I could talk to my neighbor Stu and he could probably help me out with some stuff. And it's just communicating, but like genuinely, and like improving the quality of the relationships you have. Like say we have like a friend circle of 10 people and we're like, oh, I could use more friends. And is it, could you use more friends, or could you
Mm-hmm.
have better quality communication with those 10 friends? Or maybe
Mm-hmm.
are these 10 people that you should be communicating a lot with? Because there is such a thing as just like some people are going to fill our cup and some people are going to drink from our cup and just like walk away, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Have you ever come across a time in your life when you had that moment where you realized like, well, shit, like everything in my life is emptying my cup?
Yes. And then I signed myself up for yoga teacher training and quit my job and flew to the other side of the world and then got there and was like, oh shit, it's me. Go figure. It's not everybody else, it's me. God damn it. That would have been easier to figure out before I quit my job, but here we are. Now I have to pay a credit card bill.
That's
Shit.
okay. That happens. Like you took the jump. So
Yeah.
is that what kind of
Yeah.
prompted is that your recent trip that you went on?
That was I just recently was in Greece. So this would have been when I traveled to Bali.
Okay.
So the reality I think was to realize that we could tell ourselves certain stories and we can tell ourselves that we're great. And if for myself, like put on I had a specific persona of who I was at work, and we're great, everything's good, and it's amazing. And then I had a routine eye checkup and found out that I had a burst blood vessel in my eye, like bad enough that the eye doctor was like, "Did you hit your head? Like, have you been seriously ill?" And I was like, no, just living my life at my desk. And I went to the dentist. I had two broken roots because I've been grinding my teeth so much. And like I already have arthritis and stuff from previous abuse to my body, but just generally feeling like my body was falling apart, and was like, oh, okay, go figure. Like I can tell myself all I want that things are amazing and great, but the reality is my body is dying because I can't deal. I was having trouble dealing with the stress and the environment that I was in. It was kind of nonstop and required a lot from me. So that was the aha moment, just like taking an objective look at what was happening. Like, oh yeah, I don't sleep. Just felt like I needed to make a change, and the only change was a drastic one.
Yeah. And what is your way to make this better self-care or better self-awareness sustainable? Because like for my own
Ooh,
personal
yeah.
experience, like I've improved on things and then I've fallen back, and then I've improved on things and I've
Mm-hmm.
fallen back, and there's certain things that help me keep from falling back too far. So what is it for you?
Mm-hmm. I think, to be completely honest, it's just not trying so hard. Like, um, for myself, when the reins are too tight, then in an attempt to loosen them, I just completely let go. So I had done a Whole30, which was a really informative experience on like how I deal with food and what I craved and how my body reacts to different things. But that I got attached to the idea of continuing to eat that way, and I'm not going to have sugar and gluten and this and that, which is a fine way for certain people to live, but it was exhausting and made me a weirdo. And then I just spent all day thinking about food and planning meals. And there's more to life than cooking vegetables. A very privileged thing to say. But then to have the reality that like the thing that has been more sustainable was like, I prefer this if I this is my preference. I'm not attached to it. So I prefer not to eat gluten, and I prefer not to eat dairy, and I prefer to go to the gym 5 days a week, but not to be bound to it. Because if I make things absolute and then they don't come about, then I get very frustrated. But if the vocabulary that I use around it is a preference versus a need, I prefer to have a coffee in the morning versus I need a coffee in the morning, then if my preference isn't met, the stakes aren't so high. Because for myself, working on integrity, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And then if I don't, I'd feel like garbage. So let's just loosen up the reins here, because I can't be an overachiever at everything at the same time and also participate in life. Like I can do a great job of nailing my fitness and my nutrition and being diligent on working on my blog, but that will mean zero interaction with human beings. So if there's four things that are important, three of them can maybe happen at the same time. And to be able to be flexible about how things kind of shuffle around and take priority.
That's a good one. And like that kind of, it's the same thing with my podcast. Like my release dates kind of fluctuate, and sometimes I have like 4 episodes in a week. Sometimes I have 1 episode in a week. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just make sure that I have an episode a week.
Yeah.
And that's all I need is just an episode a week, because that's what I said I would do. And sometimes they're 8 days apart, but still technically kind of fall under that whole thing. And yeah, to not be too hard on yourself when it comes to the big picture, because you're more likely to get to that end outcome that you're thinking about if you
Mhm.
are kinder to yourself.
Totally. And you chose this path so you could have some flexibility. So what is the irony in wanting things to be flexible and having freedom, but then creating a system for yourself that is suffocating and not effective? Like I was like, I'm a
Exactly.
free agent of the universe, and then just overcommitted and overscheduled and had a miserable time. I was like, wait a minute, I'm a shitty boss of myself. This is no fun. This is not what I signed up for. I've got to figure stuff out.
Exactly. So your recent travel experience, what was the thing that you enjoyed the most?
Hmm. This was one of the first trips where I felt like I got to experience a little bit more of the local culture, I guess you could say. I've been away a lot, but not necessarily with no agenda and with time to explore. So I was fortunate to travel with my mom as well, which was not really until I got back I realized how cool an opportunity that was, because time is a limited resource and not everyone can coordinate schedules. So to get to explore in a new place with my mom and to do that like travel adventure thing together, and to, like have to use a paper map and make decisions and navigate the world and decide, try to order off a menu when you can't speak the language, and just all of those things that make travel like horrendous but really exciting at the same time. I hadn't done that in a bit, so that was cool. And to just realize that, yeah, I live on one tiny postage stamp piece of the earth, and the world is so huge, and we all have such different experiences and points of reference for what is normal, that who am I to ever, not who am I to judge, but just, yeah, it was humbling to have a broader perspective on the different ways people live, to not be able to drink the water out of the tap, and or you're taking a shower with your mouth shut because it's not safe to drink. Like, man, we're so privileged here. If I can wake up and I have, it's humbling, right? I think if I'm ever having a sour moment in the next couple of days, just be like, oh yeah, remember that water, like literally that you just brushed your teeth and your life was not at risk. Cool, you're doing okay. It's going to be fine, pumpkin. You're okay.
Yeah, I think about that too. Like, I went traveling with Dustin Iron, so he's somebody that you know
Yeah.
as well.
Oh yeah.
And him and I went to Costa Rica, and he always makes fun of me for my really awkward food ordering skills. Like, I would basically like listen to what he ordered, and then if I didn't say, yeah, I'll get what he got, or like point at him and nod, then I would try to say at least one of the words. And like it was just an awkward mess. Like, there was one place where it was you order things by the combo, and so you could say the number, and I saw the number 4 and I liked how the number 4 looked, so I was like, numero cuatro, numero cuatro. And then he's just like sitting at the table laughing at me, because then the lady is like, yes, it costs this much. And I'm like staring at her because I'm not understanding like the currency and the numbers and all that stuff.
Oh,
And all the bills say like thou or thousand or whatever. I'm like, holy crap, I'm dealing with a lot of money here, not understanding that it's like dollars. And
yeah.
so like just panicking, and just the amount that I learned from being there, and the whole like you go to the bathroom, and some places, most of the places there, the toilet paper does not go in the toilet. And I was just like,
Right.
"Oh wow, like this is different." And for good reason, because the plumbing, like, that takes a toll on a plumbing system. But it's just then you go home and you're like, "Wow, like I almost starved because I couldn't function in their society." It's just like, if it wasn't for Dustin, I wouldn't know which bus to go on. I wouldn't know what I could eat. I would just be like pointing at things and lucky if I got rice. And it was just like such an eye-opening moment, because now I go home and I can like go to the ice cream place, and I'm still a little bit awkward, but I can at least read the damn sign and say what it says.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
travel is important. Everybody should do it. Even if it's like, I always tell people when they make excuses, I'm like, look, like if your budget is that limited, go to Jasper and stay in a hostel,
Right.
because like
Eh?
you're
Yeah.
likely to still get a lot of exposure to different cultures. Or like go to Banff,
Mm.
because maybe that would be the one that is more susceptible to having like visitors from all over the world, because it's one of the more
Mhm.
popular destinations in Alberta. And it's just like, it's not like what you do, it's how you do it. So it's not necessarily like how expansive your trip is, it's how you go into that trip. Because there's lots of people that could go to Costa Rica and then go to like a resort or go to like a condo, and they might not get that
Mhm.
same experience. They might not have to like struggle through, like, I remember I I was getting my taxi when I was just getting off the plane because I had to meet Dustin at the other end of Costa Rica, so I had to get a bus. And to cab to the bus depot was like one of the most stressful parts of the trip because it's just like you get off the plane and then all of a sudden it's just like boom, and now you're out in the open and you got like 12 guys just yelling at you. They're like, come to me, yeah, me, taxi, come to me. And I'm like, I don't know who to trust. This is new. I don't know what to do. And I'm like scrambling through my phone, looking for the Wi-Fi because I was like, okay, going into this, my plan was I was going to use Uber because Dustin said they have Uber here, and that's what I was going to do. And then I can't get Wi-Fi. And then all these guys are yelling at me. I'm like, well, what I'm used to is when they yell at you, you are not to trust them. But in retrospect, I realized like the guys that were like, hey, come to me, were probably the guys with the most integrity. Because then I walked
Yeah.
further and I walked towards some shops and I'm like, okay, trying to find the Wi-Fi, trying to find the Wi-Fi. And this guy like waves me over and he's like, yes, come to me. I will help. I will help you. I'm like, do you have Wi-Fi? Because I want Wi-Fi. And he's like, no, I will just call them for you. And so he calls them for me, but then obviously he's taking a cut, and so he arranged the driver, but he was like, yes, 30 American. And I'm like, no, like I'll just do what it says on the thing. And he's like 30 American, and he was like, you will pay the driver 30 American. And then I see he goes up to the driver, and the driver gives him his cut because the driver's going to
Yeah.
take the
Yeah.
equivalent of 30
Yeah.
American. And I was like, shit. Like, I get in the car, and the driver himself was great. But the driver needs to recoup what he had to give to this middleman. So
Yeah.
at the end
Yeah.
of the day, I am now screwed. I'm in the car. We get to the end. I'm looking at the thing, like, doing the math later. It was basically I got charged double because this guy
This is
had to give
tourist tax.
the commission.
It's the tax on being naive is what it is. We've
Yeah.
all, yeah,
But
yeah,
that's like a life lesson where like sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So you just have to
yep.
learn. Like people have the expectation that everything just needs to go perfect. But they don't realize
Mm-hmm.
like sometimes you have to like zoom in a little bit and take it micro step by micro step. Like yes, I paid an excessive amount for a cab ride, but I got there and the plane landed and I got a cab ride. I didn't have to walk. And actually, when I arrived, like the guy, like he didn't speak very good English. That's why he had to work with like this middleman. But
Mm-hmm. Okay.
he, through any means of communication that we could establish, he managed to communicate to me to put like 3/4 of my money away and only have like
Ah,
1/4 of my money in my wallet, so that when I
yep.
opened my wallet, that people couldn't just grab everything out of it.
There you go.
And so
Yeah.
that came in clutch because I was pretty foolish and I was well, like for yeah, I don't have to shuffle it around, but yeah, totally. Like I'm not necessarily like the biggest dude, so I could be overtaken fairly easily by someone who is bigger than 5 or like 5'8", bigger than 6 feet. Like they take my money. What am I gonna do? Beat him up? No, I'm not quite built
Yeah.
like that. So then I'd be screwed. So this guy gave me probably one of the best pieces of advice, even though I had to pay him a whole bunch of money. But then I learned that, and I got on the bus, and it was a very quiet bus ride because I didn't understand. The only thing I understood was when they're like Coca Cola, and I was like, yes, yeah, they have okay, yeah, we're at a stop because they have Coca Cola, so that means they have probably a bathroom. I need those, and it's like then I would just look at my watch and make sure I was back at the bus 10 minutes before I was supposed to be back on the bus. Because if they
Right.
said get on the bus, I wouldn't have known if they said it. So I needed to be
Right.
there
Right.
for when like the first like old lady got on the bus, and then I would just go on the bus when the old lady got on the bus. It's a eye-opening experience.
Yeah, it just makes you appreciate how easy our lives are, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, it
Oh
just
God.
makes you communicate better when you get back into the real world because you're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, like the little details make a huge difference for people. Like it probably made me a better personal trainer because the little details, like if somebody is trying to do a pull up, it's not so much like, what, you can't do that. It's more like, oh, you didn't understand how I said it the first time, and I need
Mm-hmm.
to try and communicate with you a different way. Like when you can
Mm-hmm.
appreciate not understanding someone at all, and how
Mm-hmm.
when they actually made a better effort, that the light bulb moment happened, then you appreciate the effort that it takes. Like you're more likely to put in that extra effort to realize like we're not perfect. We can always be better. So if I think I have
Mm-hmm.
some bulletproof way of training people, it's not that bulletproof. Like every different person I meet, I start from ground zero and I have to figure out how to meet them where they're at. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just such a profound thing to take away from just getting on a bus in Costa Rica, not to mention
Mm-hmm.
anywhere else that we can go in our travels. In all of your
Mm.
travels, because you've been around to different countries and stuff, what is the most profound thing that you've ever learned, if you can recall on it?
Mm. Mm. I think um, I was fortunate. I traveled to Ukraine in 2001 on a dance trip. And we went to some remote villages and communities that showed us just like incredible, the most hospitality that I've ever experienced. And we were treated like celebrities and welcomed and fed and clothed. And it was incredible. And at one point, before we got back on the bus, there'd been like a small candy or grocery store. And we all walked in and spent like what felt like a nominal amount of money. It was like $5, like, ooh, and got like just boatloads of unique junk food to take home, and saw a bunch of local kids outside. With arguably nothing, and we all shared a little bit with these kids. But just that moment of realization of just how much stuff we have and how much we consume, and to see young people that had nothing, that were also trying to process like how did we get so much stuff. It wasn't so much jealousy as just like what, like the quantity and the volume of just like where did these people come from. I feel like that was one of those aha moments of travel that will continue to stick with me, and that I hope I have more of those in the future, just to realize that my ability to tap my Visa card and just make it so, or to log in with an Uber and I just magically get to the other destination, that there's just so many people that this isn't their reality. And I need to be constantly in touch with that, because it's just easy to get carried away with wanting more and being attached to the idea of more, when I think life would be a lot easier with less, and I would appreciate things more if I had less. Knock on wood. Yeah, you know
Yeah,
what I'm
yeah, no,
getting
I'm
at.
picking up
Yeah.
what you're throwing down. That whole minimalist lifestyle, like
Yeah. Yeah.
I learned how much extra stuff that I had in the last couple of years. Like I was
Mm.
just like, oh, I actually don't use this at all. Put that on Kijiji. Oh, I that clothes, that shirt doesn't fit, or I never even liked that pair of jeans. All these different things where it's like I totally did the whole Mary Kondo thing. Like that does not
Yes.
bring
Yeah.
me joy. That does not bring me joy. That does. Oh, that brings me joy. Keep that. That does not bring me
Yeah.
joy. Like it's kind of important to do that, because then that helps to form the framework of like how we go through our day. And a lot of what I like to hammer home with people is to stop, smell the roses, and think about like 5 things that they're grateful for. So I'm gonna do that for
Mm.
you. What are 5 things that you're grateful for today?
That I had the opportunity to jump out of bed and start my day with an awesome group of people and get my sweat on. Um, and that made me, yeah, feel just fortunate that I have a body that works and that I can use it. I know there's a lot of people struggling with injuries and limitations, and that, like, man, I have this meat suit that just keeps on ticking, so I need to take care of it. I am grateful for the opportunity. I actually won some concert tickets randomly online.
Woohoo!
So I'm gonna go check out a concert tonight. So I'm pretty stoked about that. Um, I'm grateful that we got to connect. This is my first ever podcast, Dear Diary. October, I won't say the date just in case it comes out 9 days from now.
No, it'll
If it's
come
in
out today.
October, beauty. Okay,
Yeah.
October 24th, Dear Diary, big day, first podcast. Um, I am a book hoarder, and I just got an email that another Indigo online purchase is available for pickup at the bookstore. So I'm going to walk and pick that up. Pretty stoked. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to be inspired. This has been a super great chat, and makes me, not want to take for granted the power of connecting people and of being real and having true conversations about it, especially in this Instagram versus real life world. I want to hang out on the real life side, and I think you do too. And there's value in that. And even though it's hard and maybe not as glamorous, I think there is value in keeping things real.
Absolutely. Those are good ones. And it wasn't that tough. Like some people are like, oh, I cannot possibly come up with 5 things to be grateful for. I'm like, look, like, is your heart beating? That's a thing. Did you eat?
Yeah.
And like some people, it's tough. Like some people have a really, really rough life. And they might have to think really hard. It might be really, really bad or like bring up some emotion. But that's when it's even more empowering. Like there's people that wake up in hospital beds, and it sucks to push upon themselves like, oh well, now that you're in this situation, what are you grateful for? But sometimes it's that whole like how they feel about themselves in their current situation is going to help with the outcome. The most positive people are the most resilient. The most optimistic people tend to have the most opportunity, and sometimes you just need a tool to get into that mindset again, because life is it can be pretty dark, and that's why my podcast is the way it is. Because it's one thing if we talked about nutrition and fitness workouts and hypertrophy and all these things, but that there's so many people that offer that. For me, it's like, how are you going to get from today to 20 years from now? And what's it going to look like? And what has the previous 10, 20 years looked like? And who do you look up to? And what makes your heart beat faster? Things like that, because that's life. That's why I called it the lifestyle chase, So I'm going to throw a Lululemon term at you, and it's Big
Oh yeah.
Hairy Audacious Goal. So what
Yeah.
is, in the year 2019, we don't have much time left, but in the year 2019, with what we have left, what is your Big Hairy Audacious Goal?
I think I need to give the comedy thing a try again. And the really funny part is that was my BHAG when I worked at Lululemon, and I had done it for the first time in the summer of 2010. And I use that also, like reflecting back, as much as I maybe didn't execute it as well as I could have. Part of why I ended up winning the online contest was then the next video that came up with my online submission was a link to the comedy. When I, just like there's probably been 7 or 8 other opportunities that random thing is somehow linked to in some capacity, whether how it came up in conversation or the idea that I was willing to do it. So yeah, all those big, hairy, audacious goals, like even if the actual thing itself is a total bust, as long as you didn't die, it's a win in some capacity because you probably learned something from it. So for the sake of being sentimental and also just listening to a lot of comedy as of late, that I'm like, you're just not that funny. I can be funny. I am funnier. I need to try, because it's not fair to be resentful and then do nothing about it. Like a good place to start is like, oh, write down some jokes. That's where I need to start. I need to write down some jokes, and then I need to go in front of people. And then if it's a big shit show, cool. At least I actually tried and set myself up for hopefully a little bit of success. We'll see.
It's so true. And in every time that you fall down, there's something that makes you stronger for the next time,
Mm-hmm.
So my next question is the one that I ask all of my guests. And if you had one piece of advice to give to somebody on how to live their life to the fullest in the most authentic way, what would that piece of advice be?
Hmm. Looping back to that, the idea of like what the conversation we have with ourselves and our self-talk. I came across the question of just, is this true? The next time that something pops into your mind, whether it's a judgment or a comment or something, to just take a quick second to say, is this true? Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it is. In my mind, a lot of the times it's not. So I think maybe also when trying to make a decision, is this true? Like, is this the right thing for me? Because there's a lot of right choices out there for other people, like the treat yourself, like the corporate job, like the whatever. Those are great, but they might not just be great for yourself. So taking a moment to just actually be quiet enough and still enough, pay attention to what you're doing, and the right answer will be there.
That's awesome. I like it. So that basically wraps it up for our episode. I'd like to thank you again for joining me, taking this time to shoot the shit.
My pleasure.
Sweet.
This is a sweet gig you've got going on. Run with it.
Yeah, totally. It's like,
this is sweet.
I just talk to people as often as I can and just see what happens, you know?
Good stuff, Will. Good stuff, Will. Tell Dustin I say hi as well.
Will do.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this one. I want to point out the fact that I am so close to having 10,000 listens in all of my episodes combined. I am so close. I am about 300 listens away. And it would mean a lot if I could get to 10,000 by Monday. The best way to do that is if I could recruit your help. How do you help? Well, if you liked this episode and you're listening to it, if you could share it with a few friends, or if you share it on your Instagram story, or if you play it and then you tell somebody about it, or even if you just message me your feedback or put a rating on like iTunes or something, that is what makes the snowball get bigger. Because if it's just me putting out my message and then my mom and dad listen to it, like they can only tell so many people. They can tell like my aunts and uncles, stuff like that, but like they only have so much of a reach. So I'm gonna need your help too. And I don't take it for granted, not for a second. I know that there's only a finite amount of hours in the day, and I release a lot of content. But if you made it this far, I appreciate the heck out of you. Reach out to me if you enjoyed it, because then I can like actually say thank you for giving me all this time, because I just keep yammering. So yeah, let's get to 10,000. Let's do it. Thanks for the support.